I have been a resident, my name is Misty Buscher, first of all, and I have been a resident of the city of Springfield for the majority of my lifetime, over 26 years. I'm not that old, so that is a majority of my lifetime. And I am very proud to be a resident of the city of Springfield. I have a husband, his name is Michael. We live on the north end of Springfield. And we have two children, Courtney and Anthony, and they also reside in town. I have been a financial professional my entire life. For the past 23 years, all I have done is work in banking. I have worked for small community banks my whole life, so when you work in community banking, you do a variety of jobs. You do everything. It's not a huge departmentalized type of work, so I have worked my way up through the banks, and I have done every job that is out there, including shoveling snow. So if it's a job that needs to be done in a community bank, you need to know how to do it. So it includes filing reports to the federal government, following many federal regulations that we are regulated on as far as FDIC regulations, CRA, BSA, Reg Z. There's so many regulations that would blow your mind. But anyway, so it's all I've done is spent my time following regulations, being a banker for the community, and so I wanted to bring that into city government, my experience from banking and serving our community, something I'm very proud of. I do a lot of volunteer work in the community as well, and I look forward to bringing that into City Hall. I think it's important that some of the people that you help in the non-for-profits, meaning children mostly, see a city official as someone that is personable, that they can like, and maybe envision themselves being one of those people someday. I like to do a lot of volunteer work in that capacity, and I think it would be a great image for the city of Springfield to have someone on staff that is one of the elected officials doing that. So that is a little bit about my background as far as why I wanted to run for city treasurer, just because of my financial position, my desire to help the community.
I'm Frank Edwards, and I've lived in Springfield all my life, except for the time I left for the military and the time I went to Eastern Illinois where I graduated. And I think being a graduate of the university helps Illinois that you get certified through the Illinois Treasurers Association. There's a qualifying part that you have to do, and being a college graduate helps in that process, and I plan on doing that. I'm a small business owner. I do my own payroll. I do the SUDAs, the FUDAs, the receivables, the collectibles. I think that helps because part of the treasurer's position is to balance the books, keep the books, and do those kinds of things. I've been an elected alderman for the last 12 years. I love working with constituent issues along with reviewing city finances. I think that's an important part of us. I think you need to have a clear understanding of city finances to know where the money's going and where it's coming from. I did a small stint in the mayor's office where I worked with a very dedicated team, and we turned around an $8 million deficit budget. And when we handed that government off to Mayor Houston, I think that we were $774,000 in the black. Very proud of that, but I didn't do it by myself. It took a dedicated team to do it, and that team had to have trust in you as a leader that you were making the right decisions. I, along with Christy, believe in giving back to the community. It's not all about what the community can do for an individual. I think as an elected official, I proved my charity. I gave my salary of 4 years to Southwind Park. I thought it was important to do that. I'm involved in a lot of charities myself, and it's very rewarding when you do that. And I think that, like Misty, you have to be able to be approachable from people. And I think I've done that and proved that over the last 12 years. As far as why I want to be treasurer, that's it. I bring the experience to the table. I understand the city finances as a small business owner and as an elected official. And I think that's important because private business and government finances, there tends to be a little bit of a difference. And I understand both those differences. So I think it's important that I bring that experience to the table along with my understandings of the safeguard of the city's finances.
Could you, perhaps elaborate a little bit on the specific skills that you have that you would be bringing? Treasurer strikes me someone needs to have some specific types of skills.
Yeah, like the treasurer's office, you're going to have to balance the books. You're going to have to reconcile the books. For me, what I do in our business, I am the accountant. I do the 941s, I do the SUDAs, I do the FUDAs, I do the receivables, I do the payables. Those are things that go into the treasurer's office. Also, you have to have you have to be a leader. It's a department of 13 people, including the treasurer, and you have to keep everybody moving in the same direction. We also administer traffic court, and I think it's important that you be able to work with people outside the realm of finance to be able to do that, and I've proven I can do that.
I believe that my skills that I bring into the treasurer's office do come from my financial background. Again, following regulations is something that I've had to do on a daily basis my entire life. Taking continuing education courses for those regulations on an annual basis is required of bankers. We all are assigned a number. We're watched by the government to make sure we do not make bad decisions in banking, because then we can lose our positions. We're watched over by the feds. So those are things that I have to do. The treasurer's office has to follow the Public Funds Investment Act, the State of Illinois Pension Code, Illinois Municipal Budget Law. Those are same types of things as what I've been following in banking my whole life. Rules and regulations that you have to follow in order to do the job correctly. The treasurer's office collects money for parking violations, receives deposit revenue, balances the city's funds, as Frank said, manages investments for the city, and then also administers police and fire pension. All of those things are financial background, which is what I have as well. Frank talked about just a while ago designation you can get. It's actually called a certified treasury professional, and I have already spent the $2,500 for the coursework, paid for my test and everything. I've already been accepted into the program, and I spent my own funds on that because it's important to me that I do my own continuing education for the city. I do not expect the city to pay for that. It's something I would do on my own.
How long does that program take?
The self-study is 8 books. It's very large, Bernie. There is a course you can go off-site for a week and take, but I am campaigning a lot, so that's not something I'm doing at this time.
I mean, is it like a year? Or
if you take the 1 week, it tests several times a year. The next testing date is in July, so it tests several times a year. So I just did the home study because of the campaign. I don't have time to take a week off to go take a class. So
just a question, because I heard it phrased, it sounded like, are you a college grad, or does that?
I attended Lincoln Lake Community College. That's where I went. So yes.
And Franklin, when we talked, you said that you were going to take the certification course and hope to finish it in 4 years that you're in office.
Right. First of all,
Is that the same thing? Are you talking about apples and apples here?
Should be certified treasury professional. Mm-hmm.
well, what this is, and I'll give it to you, Bernie, you can keep it. It's a professional certification program for certified Illinois municipal treasurers credentials. So there's an association, and they set up a credential and a certificate program. And what it is, as I understand it, you can't get into the course until you've been elected official in the elected official as a treasurer. Then once you get in, they set up a criteria with points, and that points criteria says what you if you're a college graduate with a degree in finance and accounting, they give you 50. You got to have 85 points, and it's 85 points over a period of time. That would be 50 points. If you're non-related but a college graduate, it's 30 points. Then they give you so many points for attending their seminars and seminars and certification programs. And that would take, because they only offer it once or twice a year for their programs. And then, so it would take you almost a year to get through their program of continuing education. That's the program right there. So it may be 2 different things that we're talking about.
This is a nationally recognized program. I'm a member of the Associated Financial Professionals Network, and Jim Langfelder is also a certified treasury professional, and you have to be part of the Associated Financial Professionals Network, and you do have to apply to this, and they do score you, and you do have to be accepted into the program, and they could deny you in the program. Based on my history of banking, I was accepted into the program because of the 23 years of my financial background.
Do you think the fact that you just went to Lincoln Land and not a 4-year has any negative effect on where you're at for this job?
For this job? No, not at all. I think my 23 years in banking is far more than I would have learned in additional time in college.
Frank, I want to make sure you went to UVI, is that what you
Eastern
said?
Illinois
Eastern,
University.
I'm sorry, okay. And your degree is in?
I got an education degree. I majored in physical education with health education and driver's ed.
One of the things, well, first of all, for each of you, you invest city funds. Do you have any leeway in how you invest city funds, or do you have any philosophy that would be different from how they invest city funds now?
There's a state law in effect that you have to invest the city funds. When you are investing city funds, this is different than the pension funds. The city funds have to be invested in government-backed securities, so they're safe. Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, Federal Home Loan Bank, bonds, T-bills, those sorts of things. Also, when you're investing the city funds, the city does have an investment manager in the treasurer's office. And when you invest in with the city funds, you have to use an investment broker or bank that is certified within the state of Illinois. There are licenses in the state of Illinois. You cannot take the funds outside of the state. They want to keep them here. So you can, the investment manager would help choose where they would go, but there is some specific places where it cannot go. So it has to be in government-backed securities.
So you pretty much do what has been done because it's generally laid out.
Yeah, there's a rule there.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's IL 65, the Public Fund Act, that lays out what you can do, and the bank has to be registered with the Illinois Commissioner of Banks and Commerce, I believe, before it can be allowed to have municipal funds invested in it. She's right. The law lays out exactly where you can and can't put your funds. And Brad Losher, who's done a great job in the treasurer's office, there would be no reason to mess with that success. There's two types of accounting that are kind of done in the treasurer's office. One's accrual and the other's on the cash basis. And when you look at the investment portfolio, that's done on a cash basis because it's in and out. You're moving funds all the time to pay bills, so it's in and out, so it's short term. So you don't want to mix up long-term investments, what we the public think, with short-term investments. So you're doing CDs, you're in bank collaterals and things like that. And in order to be a bank that is used in, we have 7 that we use, and they have to have a collateral greater than 105% of our investment by law.
How do both of you feel the current treasurer has done, and are there specific changes you would like to see or make in how the office is run?
I went first last time. I'll let you go first.
I think Jim's done a relatively good job. I think the office has been stable. He's protected our funds. One only needs to look at a couple issues, one close to home, one far away from home. Dixon, Illinois, where the treasurer siphoned off a bunch of funds, and she went on vacation and inadvertently got caught. The other one is where Orange County, California decided to go for yield instead of liquidity and safety, and that cost their city dearly. So I have interaction with Jim on a weekly basis through the city council. His reports are given to us. We're able to ask questions. And I think Jim's done a fairly good job.
I do think the treasurer's office has done a fantastic job. Their goal is to have safety, liquidity, and rate of return on the investments. He and his staff, I am a team player. Working in banking, you can't do anything by yourself. You have to have a team. And the team in the city treasurer's office has done a fantastic job. And if you look, a lot of them have been there a very long time. So I think that they all deserve a pat on the back for doing such a great job for the city of Springfield. For myself, a couple of things that I would like to bring on board. One of the things, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but just a fresh approach. I'm coming from the outside world. I'm coming from private industry. I've never been a public official. This might be different for Frank than myself, but this is all very exciting to me, the campaigning and meeting people, because I've never done it before, and the excitement for you may not be as fun because it's the first time for me. So I am excited about bringing a fresh approach into city government. I also know that there is a plan right now. The treasurer's office and the clerk's office is working with the state of Illinois' treasurer's office in order to be able to receive funds online to pay for licensing, whether it be for a renewal of a license or a license for a business. And right now, that cannot be done online. And the reason that initiative has been put on hold is because our treasurer's office for the state in November had a change of leadership. So they're waiting for that to settle down, and I would love to step into the treasurer's office and help make that happen so that people who are applying for business licenses can apply and pay online, which is something that we would like to see. Also, to my knowledge, you can pay for city water, light, and power bills, parking violations, and library fines online. So the more online payments we can receive, I think it would help with the budget because you're spending less money. And let's face it, consumers are younger and they want to do things online. That's how we should move the city. There's an issue, I think, in City Hall with Visa debit cards being accepted. City Hall can take face-to-face MasterCard and Discover, but not Visa debit card. And it has nothing to do with the city. It has everything to do with Visa. Visa charges a fee to the person or the entity running the card. Have any of you shopped at Sam's Club? You can't use your Visa debit card there for this same reason. The city is not allowed to pay that fee. The state of Illinois says you can't pay a fee to Visa. So if a mother takes her children down to City Hall to get a copy of someone's birth certificate to enter them into preschool or school, Parks takes her kids into the circuit clerk's or to the city clerk's office and goes and pulls out her debit card, she's told she has to go somewhere and get some money and come back because they cannot take the Visa debit card. There isn't anything a treasurer or anyone else in city government can do about Visa and how they transact their business. But what I have been investigating and getting information on is the ability to put an ATM machine in City Hall. Because then you can tell the mother with the children or the business license person or the person at the CWLP window, whoever it is, we can't take your Visa debit card, but right around the corner is an ATM and you can use that. Now the city cannot take funds from that, so the ATM would need to be owned by another entity. And ATM machines are owned sometimes by financial institutions, but sometimes not. Sometimes they're owned by individuals. We could form a business here today and own our own ATM company and service them. And so what I have reached out to consumers and people that own both financial institutions and individuals that own them is, would they be willing to put one in at no cost to City Hall because you do not want to incur any expenses? When they put that machine in, they also are responsible for maintaining it, putting the funds in it. Normally it's a Brinks truck that comes in and puts funds into it. So the city would not be responsible for any of that. It would simply be a convenience to the citizens in order to be able to use that debit card at City Hall. I would assume that maybe some of the employees would be happy to have it too and possibly use it as well. So that is something that I would like to see happen just to make it easier for the constituents of the city.
Opinion on it?
No, I think that's an excellent approach. I see no fault with that. Make it easier for our consumers to do business in the city. We've actually hooked up, we've co-opted with the controller's office on our debt collection. That's one of the things that we've done because they have the resources and facility to do that, which the only way that we would be able to do it would be a third-party collector. And when we do a third-party collector like that, we would lose some benefit to the city because we'd lose some of those funds where the controller does it for nothing. So that helps us. But yeah, I think that's an excellent idea.
Do you think in 2015, when so many people are using debit cards and payments, that the city should still be charging a service fee, a convenience fee to do that?
The fee does not go to the city. It goes to be paid to MasterCard or Visa charges it. The city doesn't charge a fee. They're not allowed to.
The third candidate in this race was Craig Burns. I'm only going to bring it up because Alderman, you know, the issue that among the things that he didn't like that you did is send this email to this investor in CWLP bonds who represented a group out of state, and you know he was critical of the city council not providing enough funding to avoid the technical default, and you know he wrote things like you wiener sound like a crackpot, someone who was so damn smart and everyone else is to blame. So, you know, now we talk about Obama and coal-fired plants. Is this the kind of way the next state or city treasurer should be talking to investors? I
did that one time, Bernie, and the guy started out, and you have his email too, but he said something, and maybe you can paraphrase it for me, about the city council.
Well, you did use, I think, one bad word, like what the hell are you guys thinking or something like that.
Yeah, and that kind of, I
So
didn't
does
think.
that make you call the investor and?
Well, I think he did. Craig Burns laid it out for me that the guy doesn't understand our city financing, that we have people that are paying the bill, and I'm always going to stick up for the ratepayers, the taxpayers, and the people in this community. Maybe that was a little strong, but when you come in here and say that you're more important than somebody else, that my investment's more important than you eating, you keeping your house, you paying your electric bills, I think we have an issue here that we.
You think but he was talking about the technical default, and you have said in some.
But I think
council that technical default, you don't care about that as long as the ratepayers don't have to pay more.
Well, I think what I basically meant, maybe I didn't lay it out as strong that way as I should have. We just were faced with a technical default recently, and CWLP laid out, we're going to go into technical default if you don't give us more money. I'm actually glad the city council stood firm and didn't give them more money, because it proved that if they quit doing business the way they're doing it and do it a different way, they'd be able to meet their obligation. And it's a proven fact. They just told us last night at the city council meeting that our technical default is 1.25. We did nothing, and now we're at 1.27, I believe, or 1.2. Sales went up, but we also removed some of the money back from the pilot. We also talked about refinancing, and when we talked about, one of the more frustrating things to us was when we'd ask questions and give ideas to Craig Burns, he'd poo-poo us. And I'll give you an example. Joe McMenamin said, let's refinance some of the bonds, not all the bonds. Let's refinance some of the bonds we could refinance and help recapture some of that funding. Craig Burns said, absolutely not. We couldn't do that. So guess what we're doing today, almost 45 days later, after that comment, 45 to 60 days later, we're talking about refinancing bonds. We're talking about doing the very things that the council laid out, and that's going to save us almost $8 million a year at CWLP. So for us, it was very frustrating for us to talk to Craig and say, here's some ideas. Why couldn't we do this and just be shut completely out of the process, when we're out here receiving the calls from people saying, my rates are high, I'm going to lose my house. I'm choosing between electricity and I'm choosing between medicine. And it's very frustrating. We're in the upper, and they like to tout how low their electric rates are. We're in the upper third in the state of Illinois for electric rates.
Want to comment, any comments on the letter and tone, et cetera?
I don't think it's professional for me to comment on anything Frank has said in the past. All I can do is comment on myself and say that I've had to deal with a lot of stressful situations in my background. Believe me, in banking, not everyone's always happy with what goes on with their accounts or anything else. And there are times when you just have to sit back and let someone vent and hear them, and then you just have to try to understand where they're coming from and proceed on. And that is a skill that I learned over 23 years. Believe me, 23 years ago, I was not the best at that probably. But over time, you get better with it and you learn. And I've learned quickly that when someone's upset, they just want to be heard typically. And I think that bondholder just wanted to be heard and wanted someone at the city to know that they were upset. So there's just a specific way to deal with it.
Frank, one other quick thing on this.
Sure.
You had told him in that letter that you voted no on the power plant. I know we went over
Right.
this, and you kind of forgot that you voted yes on it at first, and then
Right.
voted no later when the power thing, the wind power contract that came up. So, and then I remember when you told me that you weren't involved in Cinder running for being named coroner, but you had actually asked.
I'd made some
officials.
calls. Yes.
You had made
Yes.
some calls and asked for letters of recommendation from the state treasurer and others. So do you just sometimes say things, and is that right?
No, I don't think it's right. When you ask me, you have to look at, Bernie, this power plant was huge, and we just kept getting vote after vote after vote after vote on things. The original vote was, this is the power plant, we're going to raise the rates 34.7%. Had everything been laid in together, there would have been absolute no vote. If they would have told us from the very beginning that we signed a deal with the state for $35 million, and then you find out there was no deal, there was no sign, then we find out that there's an agreement with Sierra Club that we have to vote on, that they tell us the state's going to buy half that power, and then they didn't buy it. There is no agreement for them to do that. If the whole package would have been laid out together, I probably wouldn't have been the only no vote. There probably would have been it probably would have been a series of votes, but as it was, they kept piling more and more onto the situation, and I think at the very end they didn't know what they agreed to and what they didn't agree to, and the last straw for me was the Sierra Club agreement.
I understand all that, but
I
you agree that you said you voted against it, but you voted for it, and then,
right.
But you voted against a different part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and I don't know if there's anything to ask you about that or not.
To be frank, I've never, sorry for the pun on words there. I've never,
It's shocking.
yeah, well it was funny yesterday, everybody said I'm shocked, I'm like, oh, shock. Yes, again, to be quite frank about it, I don't follow Frank's every move and what he's done, and I don't have a past history with him, and I would hope that our history, I've only just met him during this campaign trail, and I would hope that our time now and forward is pleasant. I don't enjoy being unpleasant with people. It's not something I want to do or strive to do, so I hope that he and I can always get along, and so I just stay out of it.
You receive a pension, right?
Yes, firefighters.
Okay, and the treasurer, if I just correct, sits on the fire pension.
The treasurer is an appointee of the mayor on the fire pension board. So I could sit on the pension board. I may not sit on the pension board.
Okay.
But by law, I could. But by law, our pension board is required to have a retired firefighter on the board. So it wouldn't be like, oh, he's retired and he's on the pension board. The law actually requires that, and there is retired guys on the pension board.
So would you plan to be on it? And I know that, and I know there's a consultant that figures out who gets what paid, but the money comes through the treasurer's office. Would you sit on it, or would you ask not to be on it?
I would probably ask not to be on it. I don't think it's a conflict, but just to put everybody ease at mind. And our pension board is now we've hired a third-party administrator for investments and stuff. Our pension board is basically voting on laws that come to us and our third-party administrator.
The pension board, police and fire both, consists of 5 members, 2 of which they each have their own individual boards, police and fire, and there are 2 appointees by the mayor, 1 retired individual from each of those groups, and then the active members in those groups elect 2 additional members. So the treasurer would only be on either board if the mayor were to appoint the treasurer. And our current treasurer is on the fire board, but not the police board. So it's up to the mayor if they want the treasurer to sit on one of those boards or both. It would be up to the mayor. As Frank said, there is an outside company, Marquette Associates, who does the portfolio investing for the group. The city treasurer's office does issue the checks for the pension, though, just so you know, that the treasurer does issue those checks. The police pension, they have an accounting service that issues their checks, but you do issue the checks in the treasurer's office for the retired firefighters.
Would you want to be on both of those, or do you care?
I, of course, care. I think that our police and fire in the city are very, very important, vital services that we need in our city. So I would always want to have great communication with them and try to assist them. So it would be an honor to be on their board. Absolutely. I've been on tons of boards and in charge of budget, so that's not a new task for me.
Jim Lightfeller has made something of the fact that he interviewed everybody that worked for him when he took over for Judy Bedonia, and he kept everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on what the process is? Is it likely you would do the same, either one of you, or different, or can you say?
Well, I can say I think people get a taste of what I did when I went in the mayor's office. I didn't look at it as an employment agency to get rid of people, to hire people. I looked at it as I would probably do the same thing. Let's sit down as a staff. Let's figure out, do we have problems in the office? Don't we have problems in the office? Where do we need to go? We need to set the goals for what we need to achieve. And I would look to keep everybody probably right where they're at. In my military experience, one of the things they taught us was don't go in and make wholesale changes right from the get-go, because that will cause instability. And I think this is very important, that we keep the stability in play and keep those members that are there.
I've met most everyone that works in the treasurer's office, and they are all very good employees, very good individuals. A lot of them have worked there for many years, so clearly they know what they're doing and they're doing a good job. So I would see no reason in order to have turnover in the office. There is one vacancy, and it's appointed by the treasurer, which is the deputy treasurer. So that, of course, whomever is the treasurer gets to fill that spot. And if I were to be lucky enough to be the city treasurer, the first thing I would do is talk to the employees in the office and see if any of them wanted that position and what were their qualifications, because a lot of times the best staff you have are the people right in front of you to do that job. So that's what I would start with there.
What does the deputy treasurer do?
The deputy treasurer is sort of like an extension of the treasurer. The treasurer's duties are pretty large, so it's not an assistant, because there is an executive assistant there for the deputy treasurer and the treasurer, so don't want to kind of mess that up. But they're there just to assist the treasurer and do a lot of the extra duties that are there. So
each of you has, I know, Misty, you say that you don't vote in primaries and you're none.
I haven't.
And Frank, I know you're a Republican. You're not a committeeman, right?
No.
No, because you've been on the council.
I resigned that when I went on the council.
Gotcha. And so each of you gets the endorsement of a party. The Democrats are for you, the Republicans are for you. What does that mean? Does it mean anything in this race, or what?
Sorry.
Well, I think it means you got some people that may get out and help you, because the city's huge. If you think you're going to win a citywide election as a one-man band, it's not going to happen. You need some organizations to help you, and the parties tend to reach out and help people, and that's really the benefit you get. You watch me on the city council. I vote with both sides of the aisle, and I've always told people this, and it's invariable. You'll get somebody that called for you and they go, "Well, I voted for you." Well, that really doesn't matter. Once you become an elected official, you take that hat off and you start working for the constituents. So as far as a party saying here or here, once they help you, they try and help you get elected, but once that's over with, now you got to help the people. And you can have people that vote for you, people vote against you, Republicans or Democrats. If they come to your office and need help, you need to help them.
I think it's great that there are parties out there, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Tea parties. There's so many parties anymore. Bernie had interviewed me in the past, and I told him I had never voted in a primary where you have to pull a ballot. Might be my age, but I do not want to wear a label. I don't want to wear a label that I'm one or the other, because I use my mind. I vote looking at what the person stands for, what their background is, and are they qualified, and that's how I choose who I vote for. So I don't want to just pull a specific ballot, which is why I had never voted in a primary where you have to say you're Republican or Democrat, because I would like to see all the parties on the ticket personally. So the fact that I am myself an independent is what I was telling Bernie in the beginning is true, because that's how I vote. Now, the Republican Party has never even spoken to me. I've not talked to anyone in that party, but the Democratic Party did reach out to me and asked me to come speak to them multiple times, and I did. And then I received a phone call from them saying that they felt I was the best candidate for the job. I don't know if they talked to my competitor, but they wanted to know if I would accept their endorsement. And of course, I was happy to accept their endorsement, because it's a group of people who think I'm right for the job. Why would you not want to accept that endorsement? So I think that's fantastic. As far as the daily duties of the job, I have family members who I love dearly that are Democrats, and family members who I love dearly who are Republicans, so that should not play a role in the job or with your staff, because believe me, I'm sure we all have family members like that, and you just accept everyone, and we all have opinions. That's what's great about America.
Well, you sit with an alderman who's a chairman of the Democratic Party, so did they talk to you, or did you not talk to them, or is it just?
They didn't talk to me.
You're the
No, they didn't talk to me.
Party.
Right.
I didn't know, so.
Okay, gotcha.
On the matter of overdue fines, the city had made a few years ago a concerted effort to get out there and collect overdue fines. Just wondering what your assessment is of how that's been going, and do you think there are improvements or things that you could do as treasurer to help
Well, one of the things that happened, and we had this discussion about third party, and since that time, the controller's office has gotten involved, and now they are helping with the debt collection. It's going a lot better, but it was an issue for us. One of the problems that we had is the list that's out there. That list goes back many years, and we're not even sure whether these people are still alive. So the state government, the controller's office, is helping sort that out and weed that out. And I would think probably by the time Jim leaves office to the controller's office, they're going to have a pretty good handle on that.
What does the controller's office do?
They help collect our debt.
Do they have a debt collection unit over
Yes,
there?
they do. They actually do.
And they do that for free for the city?
They do it as part of their process to the state, as we explained to us.
Is that like when they withhold money from checks that go to people?
Mhm.
Is that
Be
what
if they
we're
Yes.
talking about?
Yep.
If they have
Okay.
state, like,
Any
income
state-
tax
Yeah.
coming back, they
Right.
would withhold
If
it.
they're getting a state refund, then
Right.
you'll get your part of it if you're, okay, so
Yep.
that's what it's just a computer.
Right.
They set it up
Yes.
so that you get a diversion of their funds.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's really helped.
In answer to the question regarding the collecting the money, I know with parking violations, the treasurer's office has worked with the police department to try to be a little bit more aggressive on that. So when you get a ticket, if you don't pay it, the next time you're going to get a boot on your car. I don't think that there is a lot of boots that we have. Maybe they could, I don't know what the cost would be. We'd have to see if it would be worth it to purchase more. From that point forward, when there are 10 tickets, you do have your license suspended. So they've tried getting a little bit more proactive on receiving those funds in, and if you have a suspended license, you're probably going to go ahead and pay those 10 parking violations. So I think that the treasurer's office has worked, as you said, with that and trying to collect more funds into the office. As far as the comptroller's office, that is something that they will do for a municipality, is withhold the state income tax if a person is going to receive funds back, and then the funds would come to the city if there was a violation owed out there.
And then
Excuse
also,
me, I'm gonna have to leave. Thank you.
do you see any opportunities through the treasurer's office for increasing transparency of taxpayers and residents of the city? I was looking at the website, and there are some reports and things on there, but have you given any thought to what more could be done?
Well, as far as transparency, well, I think if you go back, my stint on the mayor, we talked about the budget, we talked about the finances, we talked about what kind of shape we were in. And if you go back when I was there, we put all those finances on the website so people could see them. I made a comment one time that we had about $2,000 in the checkbook, and somebody goes, that doesn't sound right. We put it on there. We put all the finances on there. I think it behooves us, when we try to build trust in government, the more information that we can give people, the more access they have to us, the better it is for us. We can sit here and we can negotiate, and if I know something that Bernie doesn't know, we're going to argue over it all day long. But if I say, well, Bernie, this is why my point of view is this, then maybe he understands where I'm coming from. So I think it does behoove us to get more transparent, and the more that we can allow people to have a view into our office, the better off we'll all be. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that we could do, and I did go to his website to see what information he had out there. He has the annual reports and those kinds of things. But yeah, the more that we can put out there for people to see, the better off we'll be.
What are your thoughts on transparency?
Well, most of what the treasurer's office does is transparent. The monthly budget is out there, the annual budget is out there, the actuarial reports from the police and fire pension is out there. You can see right now what portion of the police pension is unfunded, what portion of the firefighters' pension is unfunded, how much cash is in those accounts. There is an annual report on those. So the budget, the city budget is out there as far as what Jim reports on, and the pension fund budgets are out there. The only thing that I'm aware of that isn't public record would be the violations. You have to have your name or your ticket number to put in for that. They do not have an actual spreadsheet out there or anything that says all three of us have a parking violation on our names, and I'm not sure with Privacy Act you could actually do that. So that would be something that's not out there. And then I know when I attended a mayoral debate recently, one of our candidates thought that the minutes from the police board and the fire board should be out there and be eligible. So I did inquire about that from being at that mayoral debate. And actually the board members for those two boards would have to vote on that and choose to have it to be public record. The mayor cannot choose that for them. So I believe that most everything is out there.
So if you were on the police and pension fire board, would you vote for that?
Would I vote for it to be out there? I think I would have to hear both sides of the fence, why it should be and why it shouldn't be.
I'd vote for it. I think that just what I said, the more information you could get out there to the public, the better off you are and the more they understand. And when we start hiding behind votes, that's what tends to get us in trouble.
And are there any technological changes that need to be made in the office that either of you are aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
The only thing that I know of is more ability to pay things online. Because that really is needed. You can do everything online anymore, it seems like. So that would be a little bit of technology that would need to be worked on. And I know they are working with their technology department in order for those licenses to be paid online. And then also, I keep hearing this, and I've never worked in city government, and Frank may have access to this that I do not because he's an alderman. But I keep hearing that people want more communication between departments in the city. And in the private industry, we have things that are called the intranet, and it's an internal internet that you all communicate on. I don't know if the city has that or not. So I guess that would be something that might be, and it would not just be simply to the treasurer's office, it would be many offices that would be a part of that.
Just when you mentioned business licenses online, I think at least one of the candidates for city clerk is talking about that. So is that a clerk's thing or a treasurer's thing?
The clerk's office receives the application, but the treasurer runs the payment. So it's kind of a combination of the two. So they would need to work it together.
Well,
Yes, so you would be working hand in hand with the clerk's office to get that going.
Actually, it goes through Todd Oliver's office. He's the business licensing.
Who's he where? Is he part of the clerk's office or the treasurer's office?
He's actually his own office.
Independent.
He's under the mayor's office. And then the clerk's office helps with the paperwork where they do the filing. Todd does all the inspections. Todd goes out and does all the legwork to make sure that they fulfill their obligation. Then the paperwork's turned in, and then as the treasurer's office, we collect all fees and all funds, and we're obligated to give receipts to people so that if there's any kind of obligation that says we didn't receive your funding for this, they have a receipt to say, yeah, I did, here it is. So that's part of the responsibility of the treasurer's office to make sure that when somebody does pay, they get a receipt from us that shows they paid.
Any other questions? Was there anything we didn't touch on that either of you wanted to talk about?
I don't know that it's something that the treasurer has a lot of access to, but I just want to point out that I am aware that there are large portions of the police and fire pension that are unfunded, and eventually the city council is going to have to address that and figure that out. The total debt between the two is about $230 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. So I do think that that's something that if any new city council member coming on board, because there are going to be at least 5 new ones, watches this video, that they make that a priority.